Hi, welcome, and thank you for joining Advancing Canadian Wastewater Assets, Village Brewery, and Xylem for our launch of the first potable water reuse project in Alberta. My name is Christine O'Grady, the program coordinator for ACWA and the project leader for the Reuse Brew. Advancing Canadian Wastewater Assets is an innovative partnership between the University of Calgary and the City of Calgary with the goal of advancing wastewater treatment technologies to address environmental and health issues. I'm honored to be here with you either in-house or virtually and pleased to share with you our program today. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 region in Southern Alberta. The City of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. So how is this possible, you ask, and why would a project like this be undertaken? Well, it all started with the water. With the assistance of Alberta Health Services, ACWA created a water safety plan that demonstrated advanced tertiary treatment technology, inclusive of ozone, nanofiltration, and UV disinfection, could remove a variety of inorganics and organics, emerging contaminants of concern, pathogens, bacteria, and virus, while monitoring for possible disinfection byproducts. This process followed a very robust municipal wastewater treatment regime and combined to get together demonstrated that wastewater can in fact be made potable again. From our research plant, after all the testing was done, the water was transported to Village where they made beer. Ensuring access to water and sanitation for all and protecting our ecosystem services to ensure that is a responsibility we all share. This amazing collaboration demonstrates that we can all play a role in integrated water management and circular economy through resource recovery. The result of this initiative was in fact a great tasting beer, but the story is so much more. Water reuse can reclaim from a variety of sources and treat and reuse it for beneficial purposes such as agriculture and environmental restoration, irrigation, potable water supplies, groundwater replenishment. Water reuse can provide alternatives to existing water supplies and be used to enhance water security, sustainability, and resilience. This gives hope to landlocked countries where they can no longer take water for granted and for the protection of ecosystems. The University of Calgary is very proud to continue to be a part of Alberta's sustainable future by mobilizing this knowledge out of the house and furthering policy formation for other water reuse opportunities in our province, including industry and agricultural applications. Celebrating this project and its messages, I am pleased to introduce our panel from all over North America for you today. Jackson Stuart, Village Brewery Events and Marketing Lead. Jacqueline Noga, Social Research Coordinator, University of Alberta, works in the Water Resource Recovery Lab, coordinating research and engagement on water reuse and resource. Jessica Popadynetz, Alberta Health Services, Provincial Strategies and Projects Senior Advisor and Project Coordination. As a public health inspector and project coordinator with Alberta Health Services, Jessica helped to lead a provincial interdisciplinary team in the development of Alberta's first public health guidelines for water reuse and stormwater use. Jessica also consults on water reuse applications with a public health lens and loves seeing innovation and collaboration across sectors. Albert Cho from Washington, D.C., and actually en route to Arizona currently, is Vice President and General Manager of Xylem, a global water technology company with $4.7 billion of annual revenue. In this role, he's responsible for the company's newest business, which focuses on intellect infrastructure diagnostics and decision support services across water, wastewater, and energy infrastructure. Previously, Albert led Xylem's corporate business strategy, mergers, acquisitions, strategic partnerships, market intelligence, and business development activities. Before joining Xylem, Cho served on the United Nations on a global plan for achieving the Millennium Development Goals. Albert serves on the board of directors of the U.S. Water Alliance, the editorial advisory board of World Water, and on the U.S. Department of Commerce's Environment Technologies Trade Advisory Committee. He's also honorary research associate of the Smith School of Enterprise and the Environment at the University of Oxford, where he was a Rhodes Scholar. Ottawa, Robert Haller, actually. is the Executive Director of the Canadian Water and Wastewater Association, serving Canada's water utilities and water professionals. Robert is the national voice for the water utility sector. Bob Sandford holds a chair in the Water and Climate Security at the United Nations University for Institute for Water, Environment and Health. In this capacity, Bob was the co-author of the UN Water and the World We Want Water Report on post-2015 Global Sustainable Development Goals relating to water. Coming to us from Canmore, he is also the lead author of Canada in the Global World, a new United Nations expert report examining the capacity of Canada's water sector to meet and help others meet the United Nations 2030 Transforming Our World Water-Related Sustainable Development Goals. And last but not least, Lee Jackson is an aquatic ecologist. Research in his laboratory involves understanding how contaminants affect natural populations and the management options available to lessen environmental impacts, determining how technology can be used to adapt to changing water supplies, using data collaboration to harness the power of big data for water management, and combining public health, social innovation, technology to provide water solutions to remote communities. Lee is also the scientific director for Advancing Canadian Wastewater Assets, a research facility, as you know, designed to develop and test advanced tertiary water treatment, assessed through analytical chemistry and by dosing 12 naturalized replicant research streams. So once again, thank you very much for joining us for our program. I've got my beer here, my wastewater beer. We're happy to see you all, and I am going to now pass the program on to Jackson Stuart, my partner in crime from Village Brewery.
Thanks, Christine. My name is Jackson Stuart. I'm the marketing manager at Village Brewery. I just want to start by saying thank you to ACWA and to Xylem for including us in this project. So we're super excited to be part of it. And also thank you to all of you for joining us this morning to drink some beer at 11:30 in the morning. We're always a big fan of that. This project's exciting to us for a few reasons. Of course, the first one being the sustainability and kind of innovation behind it. Being in the beverage industry, anytime we can reuse, especially water, is obviously a huge opportunity, and there's a huge kind of exciting energy around that. So we're super excited about that side of it. And we're also excited though to be able to deliver this kind of research and important work that ACWA and that Xylem do in a kind of a fun way, which is in a beer. So we always say we gather people around community with beer, and this is kind of what this project does. So it's really a good fit for us, and we're excited about that part of it. As far as the actual beer goes, so we started with the Village Blonde, and we decided that that was going to be the beer that we would make for the wastewater project. The reason we did that was there's a few reasons. One being the actual recipe for the blonde is a super light, bubbly, kind of water forward beer, and we decided that we wanted to use that because it was going to showcase how clean and fresh this water is, and it really gives you an idea of kind of that as an ingredient in beer, how that affects beer recipes and beer flavors. So that was one reason we use that. The other is because it's a mainstay beer for us. It's something that we brew 10 times a week, and so we wanted to keep that process super straightforward, and we wanted to use the reused water in that process as kind of normalized as it usually would be with our normal process. So we wanted to make sure that that process was kind of the same as it always is, and it was largely unchanged from our normal brew systems. The only difference was we received our water from ACWA in a different way rather than just kind of pulling city water, but the brew process was the exact same, and that was super exciting to us to be able to say, yeah, we use this reused water, and it was actually brewed the exact way that all of the rest of our beers were brewed. So if you're not familiar with the Village Blonde, it's a National Golden Ale, 4.5%. So Alberta two-row malted barley is the main ingredient, and there's going to be a little bit of kind of dry hopping at the end there, and then of course the reused water in this case, which provides a nice kind of clean and fresh finish there. So yeah, that's kind of the idea behind the beer. That's sort of the idea behind our project. We're super excited to be part of it. I hope everybody has had a chance to try the beer and enjoys it. If you haven't, we have a little bit at Village Brewery, so feel free to head over there and pick some up. And yeah, we're going to move on. I think we have a video now from the UFC. We filmed a video at the beginning of kind of the packaging process here at the brewery. So We're going to look at that next. And then after that, we're going to hear from Jacqueline Noga, who is the Social Research Coordinator of University of Alberta Water and Resource Recovery Lab. So we're going to see the video.
Well, it started almost as a small joke around a boardroom in terms of, yes, we can, why can't we? And we approached Village, and they're so progressive and cool that they really wanted to be part of this story. So we started breaking it down and made it happen. This project was making beer out of treated wastewater.
We're always interested in doing new projects with new people, and the ACWA collaboration seemed like a natural fit. And it was an interesting challenge, to be honest, like to be able to take water directly from the sewer system essentially and recondition it to be made into a beer was very challenging.
With Alberta Health Services, worked on a water quality plan that ensured that all the technology that we used to treat this water was running optimally. Secondarily, we had to go through a process of demonstrating pathogen log reductions. In addition, we then followed up with Canadian Drinking Water Guideline testing.
Despite the fact we tested for over 80 parameters to determine that this water is potable, there's still a mental hurdle to get over of how inherently gross this could be.
The yuck factor associated with using wastewater is real. It's not necessarily justified by science, but it is actually, real, and the perception is legitimate. It really is more of a mindset than a reality.
We know this water was safe. We know the beer is going to be safe. We stand behind our process.
We were really excited we could get this project complete for World Water Day because it really speaks directly to, yes, we can. There's things we can do better.
We only have one Earth, and we have to take care of it. So anything that we can do to reduce the amount we take away from the Earth and improve the condition of what we're putting back into the Earth systems, that can only benefit humanity.
All right, I think that makes it my turn. Thank you, everyone. So as noted, my name is Jacqueline. I work at the University of Alberta in the Water and Resource Recovery Lab. I'm really excited to be here this morning. So cheers, this is great news. And it's a big step for us in water reuse. So I just want to start by giving my own treaty acknowledgement, but not just the treaty, we're here on Treaty 6, but also the land and the knowledge that is here and has been. And a lot of what I'm going to touch on today is about appreciating the knowledge that exists all around us and working together. So what I do at the University of Alberta is, my title is Social Research Coordinator. And really what that means is over the past 2.5 years, I've been trying to understand what it takes to implement water reuse. So my research team, we have some folks working in the microbiology side, and they were the ones who helped create the health metrics that are being used, that were used to make sure that this beer is safe to drink. On my side, I am trying to understand the social aspects. So myself and our amazing research assistant, Heather Nixdorf, for the people upstairs in Edmonton, Heather can give a wave. We've been working on trying to understand what it takes and learning from some really amazing people like the other folks on this call. So I will just share a little bit about what I learned. And one of the key pieces is that we need to work together. And that's not as easy as it sounds. So one of the primary things I've been thinking about and what I wanted to say is trying to explain why it's important to work together. So first and foremost, I think it's important to acknowledge that water reaches every aspect of our lives and our environment. So although in the water world, we distinguish water, wastewater, groundwater, surface water, the reality is that water flows through us and through our lives. And so we all have an interest in it. Another thought is in a community where water reuse is being proposed, the knowledge of the water that's there is invaluable. So that includes things like the recreational, relational, environmental, and other aspects that we need to think about. And it's important to have that understanding when we're trying to decide how to create a water reuse project, because the more knowledge that we have, the more informed we are. And as we have all learned, knowledge is power. So finally, when we work together, we create a shared sense of responsibility for these activities and for the outcomes that are a part of that work. And when we are sharing that sense of responsibility and ownership, we are leading in a way that creates a better sense of appreciation for the work that we're doing and a desire to maintain that work. Another thing that we've been thinking about is how do we work together effectively? And I think effectively is the operative word there. So there's lots of different ways that we can collaborate, engage, lots of strategies, and that's something that we are working on in my research team, is trying to understand different ways to work together. There's lots of information about that out there, and I'll direct you to some resources in a bit. But I think first I want to touch on the more fundamental values that are associated with working together. So I would say 3 of the most important things that we can do is have respect, care, and time. And I want to emphasize time because it takes time to build trusting relationships and to really be able to foster an environment where we can learn together. It's also important that we actually care about what we're saying and where people are coming from, because until you have that idea and that sense of where someone is coming from and the knowledge that they're bringing, it can be difficult to learn together. But when you have respect and care and time to build those relationships, then you can create a situation where you have developed trust and you have the opportunity to learn together in a really meaningful way. And of course, there's always times when things can be frustrating, and I think that that's okay. And I think that's maybe a good lesson that we have here today, is sometimes you just have to sit down and have a beer together. So if you want to learn more about what we're doing, I would direct you to our website. It's reusewater.ca. Pretty simple. And if you feel like this conversation is important, if you want to see different kinds of reused beer, if you want to see water reuse for other purposes, you can do things like email your MLA and express an interest in this topic and say that you wanted this to be a priority for our provincial government. So with all of that in mind, I'm going to introduce our next speaker to you, who's going to be able to speak to a little bit of the more tangible on-the-ground work that's being done on water reuse right now. Jessica Popadynetz is from Alberta Health Services. She's our provincial strategies and provincial strategies and projects, and she's our senior advisor. Jessica.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me speak today about the role of Alberta Health Services Healthy Physical Environments Department in this innovative project. So a little bit of background and just building on some of the information that Christine already gave you. So I was contacted by Christine last December, where she went into great depth about this amazing project that she wanted some help on. And so after consulting with some other involved parties, like the City of Calgary, as well as my colleagues down in Calgary, somehow I sold this idea, this idea that it could be done, and I was given the green light. And what that essentially meant is that I could work with the collaborators and help them to develop a water safety plan. Now, the first step typically in a water safety plan is really trying to learn and understand what the source water is, what it contains, and what it can really be made to do. So in this example, we really had to borrow from the innovation that's coming out of California. So they have approvals and processes for direct potable and indirect potable reuse already. And I was able to consult with the U of A School of Public Health, Nicholas Ashbolt, in really understanding what those treatment targets out of California meant for Alberta. And he basically said, these are good. This is what we need to aim towards and focus on. And so what that meant is that the wastewater in Calgary would have to be treated so that it could have 10 log removal of Cryptosporidium and Giardia and a 12 log removal of viruses. Now, that's a lot of zeros, and it's certainly achieving those type of targets is no easy feat, but certainly not impossible, especially given the ultrafiltration, ozonation, and ultraviolet systems at ACWA. So after some back and forth, Christine submitted this amazing water safety plan, and it had 3 main components that I wanted to review. And I want to touch high level on these because this is really how we ensured the safety of the water. So the first one was that we as in this larger group, ACWA and Xylem, we were using validated technology, and Christine supplied the data to support that this technology was validated. It did go through studies to really determine what type of pathogens and how much of those pathogens that they could remove. The second thing was process monitoring thresholds at each of the critical control points for these technologies. Understanding what thresholds and understanding the water as it goes through the treatment train is really important to support that processes are performing at the validated levels. And lastly, was a proposed endpoint water quality monitoring data. So this essentially meant that every parameter in the guidelines for Canadian drinking water quality were tested. And this is really the endpoint, and it verifies that the water is safe for human consumption. But it doesn't mean much without those other two parts. So we needed all of this in order to do our assessment. So after review of the proposal, as Christine mentioned, the water was treated and everything went as planned. All of the thresholds and all of the water quality guidelines were met. So in the interest of today and themes of today, I did want to share that, and this is just my personal opinion, I think if we were asked to be involved in this project even like 1 or 2 years ago, I don't know if we would have had the capacity or understanding to accept the risk or the yuck factor and provide support in the same manner. However, and I'm so happy to be able to talk to everybody today, over the past 4 years and under the direction of a team with expertise in microbiology, environmental engineering, quantitative microbial risk assessment, public health, and water policy, our knowledge of the subject matter of water reuse has vastly improved. And this year, we completed writing Alberta's first and possibly Canada's first public health guidelines for water reuse and stormwater use in Alberta. So although the document is not available to the public, as we just need some final signatures, communications touches, it is done. And our hope here is that it enables water reuse projects by providing a consistent and safe approach to assessing and mitigating health risks. These guidelines take a fit-for-purpose approach to address the use of alternative water sources for non-potable end uses like car washing, irrigation, and cooling. So although we haven't specifically addressed direct potable reuse, the document is designed to be flexible and guides a proponent through the steps to create a water quality management plan. Our involvement on the Rebrew, the Sustainable Beer Project, was mutually beneficial. I know that I talked a bit about our role and how we helped. We were able to provide support to ACWA, and also we were able to provide assurance to some other regulators that the water was safe. However, we were also able to use this experience as a high-level test of our own health guidelines. And reflecting upon the collaboration has given Alberta Health Services reassurance that our health guidelines contain all of the necessary information to guide a proponent to address the public health hazards for all sorts of water reuse projects. And so my last thought that I just wanted to conclude with regarding the project and the guidelines is that by learning to control these acute health risks, as well as incorporating some of the social ideas that Jacqueline just reviewed, we can start to think about these alternative water streams and incorporate simple to advanced treatment processes. We can start to see these as resources and not as waste. And this change in thinking can help conserve water, protect the environment, and ultimately provide a sustainable future, which of course would increase public health protection. So thank you for tuning in, and cheers. And our next speaker today will be Albert Cho. Albert is the Vice President and General Manager of Xylem. Thank you.
My name is Al Cho, and I'm with Xylem. We're a global water technology company based in Rybrook, New York, with a presence here in Calgary. Our mission is to help create a world where water issues are no longer a constraint to human health, economic prosperity, or environmental sustainability. And I think our partnership with ACWA and Village Breweries is a perfect demonstration of this mission. We all know that Alberta faces periodic water shortages, and it's not lost on any of us that Alberta, like everywhere else, is facing difficult economic circumstances in this challenging time. And while water reuse is a big and obvious part of a sustainable future, we also know that around the world, regulations haven't always kept pace with the technological reality that purified, recycled water is perfectly safe to drink. Science tells us that recycled water is perfectly safe. In fact, what most people don't know is that every molecule of water that they drink has passed through another living organism countless times. It's all about perception, and that's why this project is so important. A couple years ago, we did a survey of about 3,000 people in California and found that 87% of people were more inclined to use recycled water after learning more about the treatment process, and very supportive of it once they learned how carefully and comprehensively water treatment and disinfection works. Education is critical to sustainability as we move toward a circular economy and one water. So what could be more powerful than turning recycled water into the most popular beverage in Alberta and demonstrating the power of innovation to create a buzz? Well, it sounds really simple. I assure you it was not. I remember meeting Kevin and Christine at ACWA about maybe a year and a half ago. Xylem has a range of advanced water purification technologies installed in Calgary, and we started brainstorming about things we could do together to advance the water sector in the city. And the team at ACWA came up with a great idea, the idea of starting with something that would really get people's attention and get their excitement. And that really became the partnership with ACWA and Village Breweries and resulted in the Rebrew project. But it was a great idea. A successful innovation doesn't just happen because someone has a great idea. It happens because people work together toward a common goal to break down every barrier that stands in their way. And nobody exemplifies that more powerfully than Christine O'Grady and her team at ACWA. They've worked closely together with technology experts from Xylem, from Village Breweries, and a much broader ecosystem to make all of this happen. From learning about the minute details of log reduction to ensure pathogen elimination and safety, to collaborating with provincial health officials to ensure an understanding of the regulatory landscape, this partnership exemplifies the resilience and the collaboration that will be needed for all of us to thrive in the future. That's why we at Xylem are so proud to be partnering with ACWA, Village Breweries, and everyone else on this call on this important initiative, and to be a part of Calgary's water ecosystem. This project shows the power of science joined by the power of spirits. And with that, I'd like to introduce Robert Holler, Executive Director of the Canadian Water and Wastewater Association.
I'm Robert Holler. I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Water and Wastewater Association. We represent all the water professionals in Canada that treat your water and your wastewater. We are the municipal utilities that are providing you that clean water and treating all the waste before it goes back to a river. So this is a really exciting project to be part of, and we're really happy to be here today. We're always addressing that Canadian myth of the endless water supply. And that's just not true in many, many parts of Canada, that the water supply is not endless. But forget the supply, it's the energy that we take to treat that water, to treat it, to capture it, retreat it. That energy can be lost through leakage, that if we're losing 30 to 40% is the average in many towns and cities. Imagine if we could fix that, we could save 30 to 40% of the energy. And then if we reuse water, imagine how much more energy we could reduce and stop the effect that we're having towards the whole planet. So what we're doing here with this beer is really exciting because it's getting us to think about what we can do about reuse. Industrially, the way they can reuse water within their processes. In agriculture, the inappropriate use of treated water and any of our water. And then what can we do at home, from the way we water our gardens to what we flush our toilets with. If we get into reuse within a home, there's so many exciting things that we can be looking at and learning from the world, like from California, Australia, Israel is amazing, Singapore. There's so many things that we can learn. But this beer is getting us to think about that. It also speaks to the level of treatment that we're getting in our municipal utilities, that the treatment that we can get to is to such a great quality, whether we're about to drink it or if it's going to go back in the river. We're in this thing together. We are all stewards of our water, and we're in this together. So thanks and cheers.
Thanks very much. Great to see you again, Robert, and everybody else on the call. And I also want to thank Christine very much for the invitation to this very unusual but rather amazing event. Well, it's odd to do so given that everyone in this Zoom session is in a bar or at home drinking beer. Please allow me to extend the very best wishes of the United Nations to all. And this is a big year for the UN. The 75th anniversary of the creation of the United Nations will be celebrated on September 21st. And the theme of the celebration is the future we want, the UN we need. The United Nations 2030, transforming our world global sustainable development goals, are the blueprint by which we can create that future, the future we want. In that respect, it's not in any way inconsistent that we should be drinking to sustainability, especially with respect to water quality and water security here in Canada and around the world. And as it happens, it also happens to be the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And that closes something of a circle for me in that I participated in the first Earth Day. And it's interesting to track our progress nationally and globally over the 50 years since. We can do that by tracking the day we are today marking or observing, but certainly not celebrating. Today is Earth Overshoot Day, the date each year when humanity will have used all of the biological resources that Earth can renew during the course of an entire year. Since 1969, the Global Footprint Network has been marking the date each year upon which humanity begins to overshoot the Earth's ability to regenerate natural resources in that same year. And what's really interesting is that 1970 was the last year humanity stayed within anything close to a safe budget with respect to this ecological need. And 50 years ago, the planet could sustain our population and provide for its needs in just over the entire year. But as the decades passed, we began using up the Earth's annual bounty earlier and earlier in the year. In 2001, Earth Overshoot Day fell in early October. And 2017, it fell on August 2nd. And that year it was calculated we need the equivalent of 1.7 Earths to sustain our population at then current levels of need and demand. It looked like we were on our way to plundering ourselves out of house and home. But this year, something very different happened. Earth Overshoot Day this year fell on today, August 22nd, more than 3 weeks later than it did in 2019. And this later day reflects the 9.3% reduction in humanity's ecological footprint from January 1st to Earth Overshoot Day compared to the same period last year, which of course is a direct consequence of the coronavirus-induced lockdowns around the world. This sudden year-over-year contraction of humanity's ecological footprint, however, is far from the intentional change in the way we function as a society we need to put in place if we are to achieve ecological balance, while at the same time ensuring human well-being, which are two of the most important critical measures of real sustainability. So humanity this year still used 60% more of the Earth's natural abundance than what can be renewed, as much as if we were living on 1.6 planets. Now, when a pandemic proved that some interesting things, that when they put human lives above all else, governments are capable of acting very swiftly, both in terms of regulation and spending. We can change the direction of our society. The object, however, should be to do so intentionally, not by way of mass human suffering as a consequences of unexpected natural disaster and pandemic. So to create the world we want in a more orderly way with less pain, we need to rely on science and make sure that that science drives timely evidence-based decision-making at all levels of government. And what this remarkable initiative proves is that partnerships between leading-edge university research centers, outstanding technological companies, and municipal water treatment plants can result in practical, measurable benefit to all. The success of this partnership reminds us that because our hydrology in Canada is changing and new contaminants of concern continue to emerge, we need to constantly attend to the improvement of tertiary water treatment. We are reminded today also that water in one form or another is a vital part of our lives. And the brewing of beer is just one of millions of upscale uses of water. But if you love good beer, good water is vital. And I'm sure all of us will drink to that. So please now allow me to introduce one of Canada's and the world's most respected water scientists, Dr. Lee Jackson.
Thanks, Bob, for those sobering thoughts and your comments as always. 20 years ago, when ACWA was conceived, water reuse wasn't even in our conversations. At the time, we talked about emerging substances of concern, or ESOCs, things like hormone mimickers and gender benders in the environment that were causing all sorts of issues with native populations. ACWA was designed to develop and test technologies to remove a growing array of chemicals, the problems of the day, but it was also built with sufficient flexibility to think about the problems of the future. And these problems are here now. We're beginning to discuss antimicrobial resistance, and of course today's topic, which is water reuse, an emerging issue even in Canada, where many people, particularly in large cities like Calgary, turn on their tap and clean water flows without limits, as if it will never end. And so the water, that's the first bit of water magic in everybody's life, when they get up in the morning and turn the tap on and clean water flows. However, the fact that we have Earth Overshoot Day shows very clearly that we are living beyond the natural capital means on this planet, and we need to start thinking about the solutions for tomorrow, today, while we have options to do so. So here we are, celebrating an outcome that used ACWA's infrastructure plus 3 partners and literally turned wastewater into gold. Wastewater is the second bit of magic that happens in everybody's lives each day. And this is a great example of different groups bringing together their expertise and their skills to the table, working together to create solutions for today's problems and tomorrow's challenges. So change happens one step at a time, as everyone knows. It's left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. And I want to acknowledge the efforts of Christine O'Grady, ACWA's program coordinator, Jackson and the crew at Village, Brewery, Albert and his colleagues at Xylem, and Jessica and Alberta Health Services, who all work together to chart a positive path forward in Alberta and within the Canadian context with respect to the water reuse space. So this project, I think, is a really important first step that puts policies and practices in place to lead thinking and successful examples of water reuse strategies. As we begin to think about and deal with changing climate, water reuse is increasingly going to be a topic of conversation. And climate change is going to alter the amount and timing of water available to sustain our cities, to sustain our economies, and indeed to sustain ourselves. So I hope that everyone will contribute their ideas in new partnerships, as you've seen today with this example, and create more solutions that turn waste into gold as it is, whatever that gold happens to be, and will allow us to do more with potentially limited resources moving forward. And with that, I would like to turn it back over to Christine. Cheers, everyone.
That was great, and thank you, Lee, and to all our speakers for your thoughtful presentations. I would like to take a moment at the end of our program here to acknowledge some of the many people that made this project and webinars possible. To the university team behind the scenes, media and technical, Michelle, Samantha, Rand, and Kristen. Pam Hyde, you're out there listening, communicator extraordinaire. We absolutely could not have done this without you. You were with us every step of the way. Kevin Frankowski, ACWA ED, and provided continual support and assistance in every way possible. Thank you for helping this vision become a reality. To the University of Calgary for their Eyes High strategy. And last but not least, the civil servants of the City of Calgary who I have had the honor of working with many. Thank you very much for your support on the ground for this project and in the boardroom. You guys and gals go to work every single day, COVID or no, to ensure that our rivers remain clean and our water is safe. So thank you for that. I think that is, I think that's where we're going to wrap it up today. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for supporting our project. Have a great weekend.